Hi, I'm Shannon. In the spring of 2022, I decided to move into my self-built microcamper for the summer. I'd be spending most of the summer exploring the UK while still working along the way, but before that, I decided to do a quick road trip around Europe. My original plans were to visit 8 countries in 25 days, however I had some mechanical issues only a few days before I was due to depart, which delayed the trip. I still managed to visit 5 countries in 14 days, covering over 2,000 miles. So here's how it went. My journey started in Folkestone. I woke up early, ready to catch the Eurotunnel train to France. I was so excited to be starting my adventure. The train only took about 30 minutes, and before I knew it I had arrived in France. I started driving through Belgium, and after only a few hours I had made it to my first stop, Waltzing Castle. I explored the castle and then continued my journey south and into Germany. After spending most of the day driving, I stopped in the hills of Germany where I made dinner and spent my first night of the trip. The next morning I woke up to a hazy pink sunrise in the vineyards. After watching the sunrise, I made breakfast and coffee to get my day started. One of my favourite things about van life is the slow mornings. Being able to wake up in nature, often in quiet and peaceful surroundings, and complete the simplest of tasks without needing to rush anything. After enjoying a slow morning, it was time to leave for my first stop of the day, Liechtenstein Castle, a 19th century cliff-top castle inspired by a novel. It was only a quick stop here before heading to my second stop of the day, Jurek Waterfall. In the middle of the Maiden Valley on the outskirts of Bad Jurek is the Jurek Waterfall. It has a free fall drop of 37 metres as well as another 50 metres over the steep moss-covered limestone and into the valley. After a day of exploring castles and waterfalls, I went back to the van to make dinner. The next morning I continued my journey south through Germany. My main inspiration and goal for this trip was to see the various mountains and lakes across Europe. As soon as I reached Ipsy, I felt like I had made it, and I couldn't wait to see what the rest of the trip had in store. The crystal clear lake sits beneath Germany's highest mountain. It's 973 metres above sea level and is one of Germany's most beautiful lakes. I was hoping to catch a sunrise here, with the still waters creating reflections of the golden light hitting the mountains towering above. It's a photographer's paradise, but unfortunately the weather wasn't the best for sunrises, which you'll see becomes a common theme in this trip. If I'm ever back in Germany, this lake is top of my list to visit again. After a wander around the lake, I found a nearby spot to sleep for the night. All of my camping spots during this trip were wild camping spots, which means I didn't use any campsites or official parking places. I prefer this method of camping in the van as you often get to stay in more secluded places like this one, hidden behind the trees, only a stone's throw away from a crystal clear stream that was running through the forest. I made dinner and settled in for the night. To my surprise, the next morning I woke up to some golden light hitting the top of the mountains. I wasn't quite early enough for the sunrise, but it was still an incredible feeling to wake up and see the snow-capped mountains being lit up by the morning sun. My morning routine is fairly consistent when travelling in the van. I love taking the time to make a nice coffee and breakfast and checking my plans for the rest of the day. I enjoy experimenting with different ways of making coffee when travelling, especially as I spent the winter months before living in my van working as a barista in a little seaside cafe. At the start of my journey, I was mostly using the AeroPress. I've since upgraded to various different travel brewers that I'm sure you'll see in future videos. After making my coffee, I went for a stroll along the river before starting my journey onwards. I then made my way out of Germany, through Austria and into Italy. I was heading towards the Alps in Italy. As I mentioned before, the goal of this trip was to see the mountains. However, it was still April and I definitely didn't think that through enough. I was expecting spring weather, perhaps some sun in the daytime but still cold and maybe frosty mornings. But what I didn't expect was snow. As I drove along the winding mountain roads in Italy, I was faced with rainy weather, but the further up the mountain I reached, the rain was slowly turning into snow. I stopped briefly to get out and enjoy the snow, but decided against staying here as I definitely didn't want to get snowed in anyway. I drove back down the mountain and after only 5 minutes of driving I was out of the snow and there was even some blue skies appearing. The mountains kept poking out behind the clouds and I was determined to see them up close. So I made my way back up the mountain pass and this is what was waiting for me at the top. I stayed to enjoy the amazing views, but soon enough the clouds rolled back over the mountains and the snow followed. I retreated back down the mountains in search of a place to stay the night. The next morning I woke up early, eager to catch a sunrise. There was a pink haze in the clouds, but unfortunately it was too cloudy for any golden sunlight to make an appearance. I enjoyed the quiet and stillness of the early morning, looking out over the valley below before heading off to my next destination in the Italian Alps. Later that day the sun was shining and it finally started to feel like spring weather. I arrived at Alpe d'Huez, one of the largest high-altitude alpine meadows in Europe. Famous for its rolling hills and mountain huts. I wandered through the fields and past the alpine huts, admiring the mountain backdrops all around. I was very grateful for a sunny day, but unfortunately it didn't stay that way. That night I slept in a little ski town. As it was out of season times, it was very quiet, almost like a ghost town. I made my way to my next location, Lago della Vico, a small lake that I imagine is a local favourite swim spot on a hot summer's day. I went for a quick stroll around the lake, but as the rain got heavier I retreated to the van where I spent the rest of the day. The next day the rain had cleared and I woke up to see the lake covered in a layer of mist. The mornings were still crisp and cold, but I had high hopes that the sun would make an appearance today. I enjoyed my coffee on the side of the lake, waiting for the temperatures to rise a few degrees so that I could go for a swim in the lake. As I don't have a permanent shower set up in the van, I mostly rely on wild swims as a way of keeping clean, as well as searching out showers in gyms and leisure centres. The water was ice cold, but it was definitely nice and refreshing. After enjoying some time relaxing at the side of the lake, I made my way to my next location, Lake Garda. This is the largest lake in Italy and is a very popular tourist destination. The lake is lined with lots of different towns and villages, all of them having their own characteristics. After spending the afternoon exploring the shores of the lake and relaxing in the warmer temperatures, I drove up the winding mountain roads to find a place to sleep for the night. I found the perfect spot overlooking the lake and enjoyed the sunset whilst making dinner. This was definitely one of the best morning coffee views of the trip. I had a slow morning and eventually made my way back down to one of the little towns along the edge of the lake. After exploring the little lakeside town, I continued my way around the lake, stopping off at this amazing viewpoint for lunch. I was completely blown away by this view. After my lunch, I made my way to Milan airport, where I picked up my girlfriend, who would be joining me for the rest of the trip. She arrived late at night and we drove from the airport to our next destination. We woke up at Lake Como. We had a bit of a stressful morning. As we arrived at night, I didn't realise how big the city of Como was. It was super touristy and hard to find places where we would be able to sleep in the van. In the afternoon we left Como and drove to a smaller town along the lake. This was a lot more peaceful, and here we enjoyed some pizza and gelato to finish off our day of exploring the lake. The next day we drove across the border and into Switzerland. Our first stop was Lavatezo, where we visited La Ponte Bridge and walked along the river with crystal clear waters. I can only imagine how amazing this spot would be in the summer, with all the little pools to jump in and cool off. After exploring this area, we drove to Lake Lucerne, where it was a rainy evening. But after we had made dinner, the rain stopped and we were presented with a stunning sunset over the lake. The golden light illuminating the mountains we couldn't see when we first arrived. We enjoyed the sunset before setting in for the night, falling asleep to the sound of the rain on the outside of the van. Monday was our last day for exploring. We hiked through the Alpine mountains towards Alpsea Lake. It was a steep climb through the forest, but eventually we made it to the lake. We stopped to take in the views before making the steep hike back down to where we had parked. Unfortunately, it was now time to start the drive back to the UK. We took 2 days to slowly make our way back to the Eurotunnel, stopping in Germany for our last night of the trip. We watched the final sunset of the trip from the roof of the van. I was sad that it was over, but I couldn't believe all of the amazing places I'd been able to visit in such a short time.